The Irish are becoming fed up with the third world invading their country. That's how they describe it. With a 300% rise in asylum seekers, protesters in Ireland took to the streets. We've seen this bubbling up for some time. Anti-immigration protests in Ireland. Conor McGregor recently came out talking about this rise in quote unquote asylum seeking or mass migration. And there were people at these protests holding up signs saying traitors among us. You know what's fascinating about this? This migrant issue is affecting Western nations across the board. United States, several European nations, even Canada. But many of these countries don't seem to care all that much. They call those that are concerned about mass migration far right. What's interesting is Ireland has a history of occupation. And now, a country that once proclaimed Ireland for the Irish has opened its doors to third world individuals to come en masse, reshaping what it is to be Irish and to be Ireland. It seems contradictory, as it were. Now, many of you may be familiar with the Troubles. You've got Belfast, you've got Ireland, and you've got Northern Ireland, easy way to put it. And you have the peace wall in Belfast. And on one side, people who want Ireland to be free. On the other side, they want to stay with the crown in the United Kingdom. And this debate waged on to violence. And people cheering each other on for committing acts of violence. It was horrifying. The fascinating thing is, with the European Union and the Schengen zone, there was a de facto end to the separation. Although it was still there, it kind of just sort of faded away. You've had this massive movement bubbling up to violence. And now they have opened the door to non-Irish people to come in and essentially colonize their nation. And now what are you seeing? People are saying enough. Check out this video. They're chanting, "Get them out." Our town. Now, they estimate about 1,000 people here and several hundred counter-protesting, calling them racist. Let me read some of the news and then I'll break you down how this stuff plays out, how it's going to end, right? Huge crowds have staged anti-migrant protests in Ireland amid growing anger at the government over an increase in arrivals and asylum claims. Over 1,000 are believed to have joined a march in County Donegal's Letterkenny over the weekend, with several hundred having organized a counter-protest. Ireland has seen anti-migrant anger growing in recent months over the sheer number of asylum seekers being housed across the nation. Many of them are unable to get accommodation, forcing them to sleep in tents, which has further incited anger. The Letterkenny Peaceful Assembly protest against illegal immigration started at the lower end of Port Road in the town's eastern side. Over in Carrickmacross, a similar protest, this one attended by around 800, was launched Friday, where speakers criticized the Irish government and landlords profiting from housing asylum seekers. Local independent councillor Seamus Trenor said people living in this ward did not feel safe in their own homes, given heightened levels of antisocial behavior. I want to get one thing straight. The reason we have a housing problem in this country is because our government opened our borders and invited the whole third world to come in. They came in their tens of thousands, and communities like Carrickmacross are suffering the consequences. The so-called opposition are in step with the government and agree with their policy. Take a look at this. This kid holding a sign saying, "Traitors are living amongst us." Yes, I'd largely just say you've been conquered. That's one way I'd put it. You've been occupied. You are being occupied. Protest as you might, but you're under occupation. And now, because of the constant revolt, they seek to bring in other people to dilute your culture. And eventually, there will be no one left to protest. Many were seen waving Irish and Donegal flags in protest against what they believed was a surge of illegal migration across the country. One little girl was seen holding a large sign that read, "Traitors are living amongst us." But hundreds of counter-protesters were also present at the Letterkenny March, railing against the anti-migration sentiment seen across the nation in recent months. The United Against Racism Donegal group invited speakers who spoke in favor of inclusion, respect, and equality for all, and rejected the incitement to hatred. Cops reportedly managed to watch over the incident without any confrontations, having erected a physical barrier between the two groups. Now, of course, Conor McGregor has been speaking out about this for some time. About 2 months ago, Conor McGregor draws Irish leaders' ire after anti-immigration comments at the White House. They say Ireland's leader has condemned anti-immigration comments made by Conor McGregor during an appearance by the 36-year-old former MMA champion in the White House ahead of St. Patrick's Day meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Speaking at the White House in the briefing room, McGregor said the Irish government had abandoned the voices of the Irish people and claimed rural towns in Ireland were being overrun by immigrants. Ireland is at the cusp of potentially losing its Irishness. McGregor, who was at the White House to meet U.S. President Donald Trump on Ireland's National Day, has previously said he is considering running for president in his native country. Irish leader Michael Martin was quick to denounce the fighter's comments, however, saying Conor McGregor's remarks were wrong and did not reflect the spirit of St. Patrick's Day or the views of the people of Ireland. These are evil people seeking to destroy your country and your way of life. From December of 2024, Muhammad overtakes Noah as most popular boy's name. Now, I don't care if someone's named Muhammad. And mind you, this is in England. I don't care if someone names their kid Muhammad. The example here is just to highlight that is not a British name. That is not traditionally British. And so the core culture that made Britain British is being overwritten. So I'll tell you what we end up with. It's fairly obvious. At these protests, you have white Irish demanding more migration. I've given this example several times, but it's actually quite simple. The ancestors of the Irish fought and died for freedom. They were occupied for hundreds of years. I could be wrong about Irish history. It's my general understanding of it. But regardless, every nation has people who planted trees whose shade they knew they would never sit beneath. And the current generation of the Irish are saying, give it all away. The hard work, the struggles of so many people for generations, for millennia, wiped out in an instant because of gluttony, luxury, and white guilt. But I do think it's going away. Because at a certain point, these people who would invite the third world into their nation, they will develop a society. These people allowing this in are going to end up with a society they do not want. And I'm not saying all bad. I'm saying something antithetical to their core values. This is what Bill Ackman said. It's a sentiment brought up by many people, mind you, but we in the United States had an administration that opened the door and allowed in 10 to 20 million illegal immigrants unvetted. We don't know who they are, where they're from, what they're doing, why they're here. Now we can't get them out. Donald Trump is certainly trying. They're now offering $1,000 for all these people to self-deport. But we don't know if it'll work. Maybe it will. In the meantime, Democrats are launching every possible measure to stop this from happening, to make sure that illegal immigrants stay in this country. Okay. As Bill Ackman said, a nation that would allow in tens of millions unvetted, but will not be able to remove them, will lose the democratic values they claim to want. And I think that's what Ireland is sick of. I don't know if any of these people will be able to muster up a defense against it for one simple reason. If you let in millions, tens of millions of people, and you give them some kind of status, they will use that to advocate for themselves and their home countries. And you will be gutted. Here's the analogy I give. You and your buddy, your roommates. One day your buddy says, hey, Jim needs a place to crash. I'm going to let him crash on the couch. And you say, no, I don't want him here. And they say, well, look, it's temporary. Let's compromise. You let Jim crash here. We'll buy that. We'll do pizza on Friday night. Hey, sounds good, I guess, right? It's a compromise. That's what Republicans did. Okay, well, we'll compromise. Friday comes around. You say, all right, time to put up to a vote. What are we getting for dinner on Friday? And you say, you said pizza. And then Jim goes, I want chicken wings. Your roommate goes, yeah, I'd rather have chicken wings. And you go, well, he doesn't get a vote. He doesn't live here. No, he does. He does. It's only fair. Now it's 2 against 1. So you lose the vote. Then another guy shows up and they say, all in favor of letting new guys stay here? And you say, no. 2 against 1, he can stay. Now it's 3 against 1. That's exactly what's been happening. Ronald Reagan gave amnesty to illegal immigrants. They had kids. Those kids grew up and said, I will vote to give my illegal immigrant parents public coffers. That's what happens. That's where we're at. That's what's happening in Ireland. That's what's happening in the rest of Europe, except for Poland. And they're trying to force Poland to take more third worlders. By all means, make an argument about fertility and population decline. That doesn't mean destroy what's left. Now, look, you can argue many of the migrants coming are bringing a beautiful culture. They're bringing their foods. I got no problem with that. The issue is just that your culture will be destroyed. It will be mashed together, and that's it. You're not going to have Irish pubs. You'll have some facsimile of it. You're not going to have French restaurants. You'll have some facsimile of it. You're not going to have French culture or British culture or Irish or German. It is going to be an amalgam. Maybe that's what these powers want. They want to flatten European identity so that they can solidify the EU. You've got to get rid of each individual nation's culture so that you can make the EU function like a single entity. I think that's largely what they're doing. They don't want proud Irish people. They want people to wave the Irish flag and not know what it means and just say, I don't know. You know, people in the United States, they wave the flag of their state almost never. They don't know what it means. They don't know why these flags are what they are. It's the American flag. I think that's what Europe wants. As for the United States, I don't know exactly what the powers that be wanted, but I can tell you this, people are going to keep protesting. We'll see if this trend reverses itself, because eventually people snap and say enough. This multiculturalism idea, even Roe kind of told us, didn't work. It just diluted the working class base and made things worse. We'll see. I'm going to wrap it up there, my friends. Stay tuned. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. And we'll see you all in the next segment.